you're seeing a third intro for the day, no, you're not. Stop it. We're watching more videos on people whose adult children have decided not to talk to them. Most of these people are people who are just terrible parents. The children grew up to adults, said, don't want to deal with that. And the parents went, well, it's your fault. I abused you, or I didn't abuse you, or I'm abusive. Okay. And it's infuriating. I don't know how many of you have parents who you don't talk to and who don't realize it's their fault, but that's who these people are. The next person we're going to watch, the title of the video is called Mom Estranged from 4 Adult Children. If you have 4 kids who have grown up and decided not to talk to you, I have to believe at this point, you understand that it's your fault.
You want me to treat you like an adult. You want me to respect your boundaries, and I've done that.
No, you haven't.
But
I promise you
have
haven't.
to treat me like an adult and a human and respect my feelings too.
Well, hello. Thank you for joining us today for another interview. We have today Virginia Glover. The biggest question
we didn't read the comments on the last one.
Hear about your story.
I have 4 children, aging ranges from 30.
Why are you doing this in the car? And why is your camera quality better than mine?
36 to 22.
That's so funny, Cats.
2 sets of
Good
marriages. So 2 separate dads. The estrangements have gone on and off through the years. Started in childhood for my older set due to
some people have lists, father. All right?
And for the younger 2, started more in their teen years.
Although I think she doesn't have teeth.
Influence from their father, and I guess I want to make clear to people, I'm not at all discounting my accountability in the estrangement.
Not yet.
But my children are adults now, and we're still not where I would like us to be. So with my older 2,
we're still not where I would like us to be, mostly because I did not drive us towards that spot when I was raising them. And now that they're adults, I expect them to just let go of all the trauma and abuse I handed them and to just treat me the way I would like to be treated, regardless of how I treat them.
They came back into my life when they reached the age of adulthood. But during that time, there wasn't a lot of information about how to reconnect with a child that you weren't the main caregiver for anymore. And especially for mothers who had always been the main caregivers. I'm one of the first women in my state that pay child support. We didn't do therapy right off the bat, which I wish we did.
Wait, she pays child support? Main character, yeah, main caregiver. So she, in some way, lost custody of her children, right? Whether that was voluntary or not. So I wonder if she was forced to give up her kids and just expected them to come back.
We had done. I mean, I had been in therapy off and on during the separation. I think they didn't know what they wanted. And when they first came back, I tried to rush in with, look at what I did. I tried to stay in touch. I tried to do everything possible. It wasn't that I didn't want you in my life. And for a while we had a relationship, but I think there was an expectation from me that I was their mother and that there would be this gratefulness to have this reconnection from them. Because it was for me. It was pure happiness. But
she's the second. So we've only seen 2 from the side of the mother, right? So she's the second one to talk about that expectation of like gratefulness. And that expectation of like, well, I'm your mom. And that's hard. Like, I don't know how you reconnect with a parent.
It was very more complicated for them, and I didn't really understand that so much.
Just was curious how many years you've been suffering with this.
Well, I'm 52, so almost 30 years. They had their lives, and I didn't expect them to be there full time.
So at this point, you've spent more of your life, more of the kid's life, and more of your life without them. So how much do you even care, I guess?
And they did come in times of need, but I think my expectation of what I thought it would be and what they really needed from me were 2 different things, because they were adults now. They didn't need the mother and everything. They needed the more friendship type mother, I think, and maybe we could get closer to the mother part, but we didn't seem to make it there. So with those two older children now, my stepfather recently passed away, and he gave me a remarkable gift.
Mm-hmm.
He set it up so everybody was at the funeral, and his hope was that we would all um, be able to figure out how to reunite and come to some kind of
Matt, I
relationship.
asked earlier if she bites her tongue because she has all those little like cuts, but I don't think she has teeth. Is that Max?
And we haven't exactly figured that out, but I did get to see them all but one. So that was a gift to know that they're okay and see them. While all this is going on, I remarry to someone in the military
Mm-hmm.
who's in the Navy, so they were gone a good bit here and there. And I started my life again and had children with him. But during my pregnancy with my third child, I was going through the custody with my older children who were still underage, having a lot of difficulty of back and forth. I don't mean anything ugly. I never talk bad about my exes to my kids, but now they're grown. I feel like I can say my truth, which is he played a lot of games. I paid child support, but we were supposed to share the airfare. Well, he didn't pay us half of the airfare. So then I had to go back to court and have that taken off of my child support. It was just a whole game. And every time they came to visit, he made them feel bad for being there with me or
I don't
connecting.
think I could live in a. Let's say like I have kids, right? Asking you the lurk. Let's say I have kids and the person I have them with and I split up. I could not leave states away. Like even if I didn't really want to be with the kids all the time, like I would have to be pretty close.
Well, if you misbehave
Unimpregnate
bad
me?
enough, your mom sends you home early. I'll take you to Disney World. Paying child support and
That's
thinking about
wild.
the family I was starting, thinking about the pressure on my other two children and how, in a way, me being a part of it was making it difficult. I backed out because I'm from Virginia in a very Appalachian part. I come from poor people. I can remember.
I'm afraid that like let's say, right? I don't want kids. I don't want kids. I think we're good there. Let's say I got someone pregnant. I'm so scared she would go, no, you, and then I'm walking around like a seahorse. That is such a deep fear of mine. What am I supposed to do with this thing? Where's it gonna come out of?
Remember, my grandparents' neighbor had an outhouse and a water pump. The person I was married to the first time, his family had money. His father worked for NASA. They were long-term money from New Jersey. So they weren't rich maybe, but they had more than we had. And we knew nothing about how to fight things in court or how to stand up for my kids. I was very young and
A lot of
immature.
backstory.
So I kind of talked to my
You
mom
think
son, and
sliced?
I had to put that in a place. I went through lots of therapy. I went through a severe depression over it. I almost lost my life over it a couple times.
If I go far back enough in my Twitter DMs, there's a DM from Lee. That's a picture of a seahorse, and it's something like wishing my boyfriend was a seahorse so I could get him boy pregnant or something like that. It's not just to me, okay?
So I could focus on the kids that I was getting ready to bring into the world in my new relationship. So I could try to give them a fair shot at it, that I wasn't replacing my other children with them. So they were with me. They were with me. I got to enjoy all the good things in the early childhood. A lot of things I missed out with my older two. It was very rewarding. Um,
I think that's a hard thing to look at as one of the older kids. What she just said was that she got to experience a lot of things with her younger kids that she didn't with her older kids. And we talked about it earlier, how like sometimes you're older and you see like your younger siblings getting opportunities that you didn't, and it's hard not to be jealous. And as an adult, you learn to let go of it, but it still has to bother you on some level. And so I can imagine them seeing that and being like, I hope she does a good job with her new kids, but I don't want to be a part of it.
I got to be very supportive, and I thought even in my mind, I was giving them things and opportunities I didn't have. They weren't maybe like some of the people around them, but they were definitely better experiences growing up than I had. But I suffer from depression because of
Oh, we're getting
traumatic
into it. We're
events.
getting into it. We're getting into it. Something you'll see over and over again from these people is I went through some sort of trauma. And so I was a bad parent. And it sucks. It sucks. It sucks. It sucks. On some level, you have to understand that it's true. But on another level, that doesn't mean you have to forgive your parents. Whether it's depression, anxiety, PTSD, or they're just using whatever they have to say as a scapegoat. There's a woman later you'll see who was like, no, that's another video from the commentary from BOZE. One of the first things she like watches is a TikTok, like 7-minute TikTok from a mom who's an estranged parent, and she goes, "Oh yeah, I had a concussion, and so I just treated my kids really bad for like 2 years, and now they don't talk to me."
In my
I think
past,
4. I think I've had 4 actual concussions.
before
I don't know how
all
6
of
came out.
that, and including this, and I didn't cope very well. I did the best I could. I thought I had put myself in a community. I had a very good community I lived in to give my kids support when I couldn't. But somehow that
Maybe one.
backfired on me. Yeah, my third child ended up being sexually molested by a coworker of mine that I allowed in my house. And of course, as soon as I found out, we prosecuted. And
I want to hear that from the side of the kid. I want to hear that from the side of the kid. Because like, every time a kid is like, hey, this happened to me. Like you have so many of those stories where like she goes home to her husband and she's like, my dad just tried to have sex with me. And the husband's like, don't believe you. Or you have so many of the stories where like they're like, hey, my uncle touched me. And then they're like, my brother would never do that. It's so common. And I want to hear it from their side. I don't want to hear it from the mom. I'm glad we're getting to them being prosecuted.
And he went to jail, but that really changed something for our relationship, and I put them in therapy. But
I don't even know how to
the
handle that.
therapist and the school teachers thought they could do more than I could. There was no focus on reuniting the family and working through the trauma. There was only concern
Bless
for the
you.
child, which I understand, but it left me and my youngest child kind of flapping in the wind.
They should be concerned about your child. They should be concerned with your child and only your child. If you're worried about the relationship you have with your kid after a traumatic experience that happened to your child, you should go to therapy yourself and you should try to understand how to maintain and build up your relationship with the child while the child is being focused on solely by their caretakers. It's not their job to be like, oh, but what about the mom? It's really not. It's really, really not.
The third child moved in with the teachers. I signed over guardianship because they were old enough to stay in court. I went to court, but that's what they wanted, and so I allowed it because I mean, what do? You don't want them to be a runaway, but the agreement was to have contact and regular visits.
That is so hard. What do you do if, as a parent, your child comes to you, they're old enough to like say in court, hey, I want to live with this person instead? What do you do as an adult if your child comes to you and says, hey, I want to live with another adult? They're my teacher. They're on board. School's on board. I'm on board. Here's what you need to sign. To get there, I feel like your relationship has to be deteriorated in some way. So I'm sure there's more to it than just what would you do, but like, God.
That didn't happen, and they kind of disappeared from my life and their younger siblings' life.
Tell me more about the estrangement, how it unfolded. Did you see it coming, or did they just?
You better say yes. You better say yes. You did see it coming. You better say yes.
It was kind of really strange because I I went in to meet with them with the therapist, and they broached this idea of me with they could go live with this person for a year while I got some things taken care of,
Mm-hmm.
and that they would have some opportunities. And I was like, okay, well, I don't really want that, but for a year, and I understand, I've always been supportive of my children having opportunities. And the father he has mental illness, and he was trying to get himself straight. He loves his kids, but he just couldn't be there. He barely made it to retire from the military. That's how much dysfunction he was having going on, and the main reason we didn't stay together. So then, as it got closer to the year ending, they hadn't been coming around a lot, but I kind of let that slide because okay, you're a teenager, you're doing your thing. It became apparent that their plan was not to come home.
That's, I don't even know. Let's say you have like visitation with your kids, right? You're in this situation. Your child has gone to live with another adult, not even a family member, just someone that's going to take care of them. And you have the right to visitation. You have the right to have your child come to you a certain amount of time throughout the week. What do you do? Like, they're your child, right? You're not going to sit down and have like a fun conversation with them. Do you take them out to do activities? Because like, that can't be the entirety of your relationship.
That the plan was not to reconnect, and I went to court. The father went to court with me. We did, as much as we could, but what do you do when that situation arises?
Yeah, nobody wants to go to court to deal with these issues, and I'm sorry that felt you had to do that.
He's back in
Did
his
you have any
bedroom.
chance to work things out before the estrangement
Yep,
occurred?
it would work on me.
I would like to say yes, but the reality is I think their mind was already made up for them by outside influences.
Okay. Which influences were those?
No, not the husband and the younger two so much because he was dealing with his mental illness. But I think between, now I can look back and say, of course, my depressive part of it, my not functioning up to a higher level.
Really? Just spun my chair around.
My misunderstanding of
I wish that they would ride the vehicle they're making out of their mental health struggles to get to where they are, to get to where the rest of us have gotten, right? We're not here to say, no, were not depressed. You were depressed. You were depressed. You were depressed. That happens. If you can say, I believe my depression caused me to be a bad mother in these ways, it is so much easier than being like, well, like, I don't know, like, I can see that maybe because I was depressed, like, they didn't get something. But, like, just find a way to blame yourself for the things that we will blame you for.
part of it, my not functioning up to a higher level. My misunderstanding of some things that were going on with this child because this is my transgender child. My daughter is now my son, which I can look back and say, of course, my depressive part of it, my not functioning up to a higher level. My misunderstanding of some things that were going on with this child because this is my transgender child. My daughter is now my son, which I fully supported. Later on, when I found out and we were tiptoeing around, but I don't know what I could have done to change what happened because the therapists weren't interested.
Something that you won't find, and it comes back to the need to be in control. Something you won't find very often is the parents going, I don't know what I could have done. I'm sorry that I did those things. Is there anything I can do now? Because asking that just gives up so much control, and you're not going to want to do it. Like, you're just not. Like, if you're a narcissist or if you're a bad person and your kid's like, yes, you can do this, you're just gonna be like, notism.
Interested in making it about the family reuniting. The couple who took them in wasn't focused on keeping the relationship with the family tight. They were more interested in the relationship in their family.
A lot of them do. cats, a lot of them do end up admitting that they performed poorly, but it's not because of them. It's because of some underlying health issue. One woman is straight up like, I had a concussion and it affected the way I treated my kids for 2 years. That darn concussion.
You know, and my son later told me some of the things that went on, that it wasn't all the grass is greener on the other side like he thought. You know, and I hate that, because I backed up, and I wish he had reached out. But my third child has, matter of fact, he's in the hospital right now again. He has a lot of mental health issues. He's very closed off. He very much is difficult to open up about things. So I don't know, I look back on different things, like even the sexual abuse that happened. Could I have prevented it? I felt something was wrong, but you don't know till you know.
Mhm.
I went through that.
When you say that your kids are closed off and don't speak of their feelings, you should wonder if they're like that with you or like that in general. I'm pretty closed off. And this is so different because this is my space. I'm on my channel, it's my whatever. I can say whatever I want here and I will. But typically in like conversations that I have with people, I don't really want you to know anything about me. And we had this talk yesterday. And it's different when I get into like, oh, my partner or my best friends. But typically like I'm like, "Oh, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. I don't really want to open up. I do enough on here.
Yeah,
I
I was a
hope I never
victim of
have to
that
find
in
out."
my youth. And I thought surely I would know. I didn't know. I will say my third child was the one who stayed in touch with me pretty much the most consistent up until I went back for my stepfather's funeral in June. Now are not talking again.
What happened?
So my youngest child left.
Yeah.
She went and moved in with her dad before she reached 18, and she's been with her dad ever since. And I think the thought is I can do what I want. I have all the money I want. Not now, because she's still living with him, but she works and does. I think she thought that whatever I was trying to give her through all the things I was going through just wasn't enough.
Did they tell you specifically anything as to why they don't see
No,
you?
I found out secondhand reasons. I mean, through my mother and the grapevine, and even through the younger children, some with my older children. But for the children to specifically come out and tell me, no. My oldest daughter sent me a letter, but it wasn't really very direct about what our
Read it.
issues
Read
were,
it.
so that
Read
I
it.
could respond.
Did they give you boundaries?
Oh, they gave me strict boundaries. My oldest daughter cut me completely off, except for eventually, after searching long enough, I found Instagram. And I never commented on anything for a long time. And then I slowly started liking.
I
Once
would have
in a
blocked you
while, I would
immediately.
say, you look really good, or I'm proud of you. And she never cut that off. So I was very judicial about how I
It's definitely
used that.
CUE.
But I was able to see her and see my grandchild, which was good.
Ugh.
My son, you look really good, or I'm proud of you. And she never cut that off. So I was very judicial about how I used that. But I was able to see her and see my
I get that.
grandchild, which was good. My son, my second child, he just he he after my ex-husband, and I'm sorry, my second ex-husband, because he turned out to be far worse than the first one.
Mhm.
um, just cut me out. No reason. I saw him one day with my ex-husband, and I met them at the bank, and he sat in the car with the door locked and the window up, like he was terrified of me, and I
Makes sense.
couldn't comprehend what I possibly had done to my
That's
child
a big enough deal.
or said to my child, because we were fine.
Were you?
to cause that reaction. But I didn't ask and I didn't push and I didn't go over to the window, but I never understood what happened. My third child, I know what's going on because when I was home for my stepfather's funeral, we had some conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Tell
don't think
us.
he really liked what I had to say.
Tell us.
But, they're not kids anymore. And it's not just about them
You think she's a
anymore. And
Trumper?
if you truly want a meaningful relationship, then both parties have to be able to speak a little bit, But he just wants apologies for
Mm.
things that he's been trying to get apologies for.
Oh, there it is. There it is. There it is. There it is. Your son wants you to take accountability for the things that you did, right? And earlier on in the video, she goes, I'm taking something about her taking accountability. So you think your bumper sticker is about like, it's Trump as like Jesus, right? And it's the second trumping? 2024?
For years. And we had this conversation 10 years ago, I might have been able to say, yes, I'm so sorry, and left it at that. But at this point,
Again, we go back to the conversation of being able to just shut up, say you're sorry, and find a way to mean it. You don't always have to defend your point just because you think you're right. And when 4 of your kids think you're wrong, you're probably wrong.
I have feelings too. I've been hurt too, and I don't begrudge them that. I understand they're my kids. That's what I'm here for. I'm the parent. I'm supposed to be the one who takes it.
So then be that person.
But I can't deny that there are other factors in it, and that they have to be empathetic enough. If I'm empathetic enough as your parent to give you unconditional love,
But you didn't do
it's
that.
okay. I take all you can give me. It's killing me.
But you didn't do that.
It's literally killing me. But I'll take it all because I love you. But when you say, I didn't sacrifice enough for you,
I just want to know what they said.
or you want me to apologize for things that you don't understand why they were that way, why I had to make those choices. Not always good choices, not always great choices, not
Her tongue is
choices I
bothering
wanted
me.
to
Am
make
I the
even.
problem?
That's not fair to me anymore.
Don't look at my
because
tongue.
we're past that
Unless you're
point
Lee.
of it being about the child, that little child. For me,
Oh,
because I
yeah.
see that little child. I want to hug and hold that little child still very much. But you want me to treat you like an adult. You want
I thought about doing the commentary of this with a lisp, Cats. I really did.
me to respect your boundaries, and I've done that. But you also have to treat me like an adult and a human and respect my feelings too.
Did they respond to that? Well,
Not good. They were quiet. And they did vocalize, that all they were looking for was the apology.
apology for, I'm sorry, Virginia, what apology for what exactly?
I don't know. They
Mm.
pulled out some specific.
Oh, you know that they actually gave her multiple reasons. And the first thing she has to say is, I don't know. Apology for what? I don't know. What they said was, and here it comes. Here it comes.
Life events that bothered them, that they felt I did something
Get
wrong.
specific.
But then after they did that,
Life events that bothered them where I did something wrong. Like? None of them are ever going to do it. And the opposite end is the kids being like, this is what happened. This is what happened. This is what happened. This is what happened. And the parents just don't say it, but they'll say they'll take accountability. She lives in Florida, right? Because there's a palm tree. And this is
that they also pointed out that this could have been part of their body dysmorphia, because of the transgender, and during that time, my child is 26. So, there wasn't a lot of information about transitioning or, I was a tomboy, but I like men. Like, what I'm saying? Like, I could only look at it from my sphere of reference. And I've been to.
which again is something you should just shut up about. I can only see it from the way I feel because I'm an empath. Just shut up. Just shut up. Pretend you understand and nod your head. But also, like, she's using this one moment, right? Furthest north palm trees go to, interesting. She's using this one moment with one of the kids, the third kid, right? Because she can excuse that, like, maybe there was more going on there with the kid. What about the other three? One of them having their own struggles and it not working out? Okay, sure. Three more?
College, and I'm one semester away from my associate. You know what I'm saying? Like, I I could only look at it from my sphere of reference, and I've been to college, and
Uh-huh.
I'm one semester away from my associate degree in mental health. I have some background information, probably more than some people in a situation. But even then, we didn't talk about that stuff. That wasn't part of our college education. It wasn't even part of my therapy conversation.
Let me ask, you're mentioning some mental illness here. Can you shed more light on that? And which kids did this
Dude, close
affect?
the curtain.
Well, it seems to be my oldest son, who is also gay, just for reference for people, because I want people to understand. I love my children. I support my children. Not all parents who are estranged from their children are bad people.
I want to know because again, she refuses to get specific, right? She'll tiptoe around the issues that were brought up by their kids. I want to know how you responded to them at the time. It's great, sure, whatever. My son is trans, my other son is gay. Fantastic. How did you respond to that at the time?
Who did abusive things to their children, because I understand the people who were beaten or neglected or, not fed, clothed. I understand. Yes, don't be with your parents. I support that. I have offered to take children in those positions, but that's not me. And that's not a lot of people. So, but my son, anyway, get back to the point. My son, I'm not sure
It
what his
did.
official diagnosis is because we're not close enough to
Officially
talk about
diagnosed
it,
as
but I will
gay, dude.
say I'm bordering on bipolar or schizophrenia. Bipolar runs in my family. My mother is bipolar. She was not diagnosed till later in life. I have not been diagnosed bipolar, but I suffer a lot of the same things: depression, anxiety. Particularly during stress, I have deep
There's just someone walking around
depression.
in the background.
I have better ways of coping now than I did. I know
Go go and get yourself medicated before you diagnose your kids and then blame them for not having a relationship with you.
to take my medication.
So
Nope.
it's been 20.
Depression.
I spoke too soon.
I have better ways of coping now than I did. I know to take my medication.
But if you haven't been diagnosed, I wonder what medication she's taking. It's like if she's just taking something for the depression or the anxiety and it's not targeting the bipolar she thinks she has, then consider going and getting a diagnosis.
So it's been 28 years. I assume it sort of happened in stages with your various kids, not all on the same day.
That's
But
good.
how,
It's really good.
we go through these different.
Oh, that's good. She's like, I take my iron supplements. So I don't know why they don't love me. Which part?
So it's been 28 years. I assume
Yeah.
it sort of happened in stages with your various kids, not all on the same day. But how, we go through these different stages of grief, and I'm curious where you are now. Are you completely
No.
beyond the grief at this point? Have you accepted it? Have you forgiven your kids? Where are you today?
I don't think any parent that truly loves their child
Max Silver.
36 months is
stops
nuts.
grieving. You can turn it off for a while. You can put it in a neat.
Proud, thank you for 36 months. I think you're my longest tenured sub. That's 3 years. That's so wild. Remember when it was just me and you would accidentally turn your computer off playing EK all the time? I remember. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Little box and ignore it for a while. But I don't think it's ever gone. I watched this counselor on YouTube, and she said yesterday She said this quote that really struck me. She said, "Grief is love with nowhere to go."
I heard that too. Yep.
And for me, some days I can turn it off. I had to survive it. I had to pretend for a long time that I didn't even have older kids because of the
I don't
shame
think so.
and the feedback I knew I would get from my community, the people around me.
She had the other one. It was something like know your self worth and don't discount it.
I was back home. I was exposed to them. I was exposed to my ex-husband, the one who was particularly cruel with things because he was the stepfather to my older children. He promised me. He knew everything that went wrong. He promised me, "I'll never do that to you." He interfered so bad. All my kids have a relationship with him, but I'm unworthy.
That's such a wild thing to think about. And we're not going to discount any of what she says. If she says she was abused by her ex husband, we're going to take that. We're going to say she was abused by her ex husband. But knowing that all four of her kids have a relationship with him and choose not to have a relationship with her, what happened there? Like the sucky thing about having this side, this perspective on everything is that we're never going to get full truths. We'll go through the comments.
So,
Please remind me.
and I don't just blame it on that. I want to make it clear to people. I have my own accountability,
No, you don't.
but there
I have my own accountability, but every time she's brought up an issue that her kids had, she goes, well, they thought that way.
are other people, finances, society that
Get
interfere
specific, big
because,
dog.
it's kind of a trend lately. This whole estrangement thing, oh, well, I can just separate from them.
It's a trend lately. Happened 30 years ago, but it's a trend lately.
And, I don't have any responsibility for other people's feelings. And,
You
you know,
have to understand that the people you're estranged from probably take a lot of responsibility for the feelings of the people around them, including yours. They've just learned to let that go because you will not change.
whatever's right for me. And I don't mean that ugly. I'm not saying that people shouldn't be independent and, do their own thing. Children, young adults grow, explore. Sure. But I think they also need to know that sometimes they're really hurting people who love them and people who, for a long time, I sat there waiting, hoping. And then I had to figure out, you know what? There's nothing for me in Virginia. I mean, my mom's there, don't get me wrong, but
Okay, so she's not in
I can't sit
Virginia.
there waiting for something that may never happen. I have to live my own life. I have to live my own dreams. And so most days, that's what I'm trying to do.
It's definitely heartbreaking and it's heart wrenching at the same time, and we don't see it coming. And actually, I'm curious if your mom is still with you or your parents.
She's still alive, yes, and all the children speak to her in some respects. So,
Dude, all your kids
uh,
speak to your ex husband and to your mother, but not to you. And you can't sit here and tell us what you did.
I do, it's a twofold. It's a catch-22. I hear things, I know they're okay, which is a blessing. But sometimes when you hear things through a friend or your parent, you just wish that your child would have chose to share that with you. A wedding, a celebration. At this point, I would settle for, "Oh, mom, the hurricane passed through. Are you okay?" you know, Happy birthday, happy Mother's Day, Merry Christmas. You know, I don't want them. I'm not the type of parent. I don't need to talk to you every day on the phone. I don't need to control your life. I raised you to be healthy, independent individuals. That was my goal. But it doesn't mean I don't care about you. And it's not that I don't wish you cared about me.
Of
Because
just
no matter
this.
what, people can say, "Oh, well, you just spurred them." Well, You can say that because you never carried that child in your body.
You're right. You didn't just birth them. You birthed them, you traumatized them, you didn't want them, and now that they don't want you, you suddenly want them. You're right.
You can say that because you never loved something like that. You know, I'm not saying adoptive parents, yes, they love children that way too because they wanted that child so desperately. But there's something that people just don't seem to understand. You know, these kids can't seem to wrap their head around, you know, we love them. I'm still here off and on, you know, what did I do wrong? How can I make it right? Then the other part of my brain says, why do I have to apologize? I did everything I could do. I did the best I could do.
God,
I guess that's what I want
there's
most
such
from my
a. I almost just said a word I don't think I know the meaning of. There's such a juxtaposition. That's a better word. I know the meaning of that one. Between the moments where she's like, I have my own accountability, and then why would I have to apologize? You have to pick one. You have to pick one.
interview to come out is for parents who are going through the same thing to
It's like, no. It's not always, I don't think it's always that your best wasn't good enough. I think about it like this. Sometimes I'm in the middle of a chess game and I spend a long time thinking of a move. And I go, this is the best move I can think of. And it happens to be the wrong move. And sometimes you have to be like, oh, my bad. I could have and should have done better. Next time, I won't do that mistake again. And that's all it has to be.
take it day by day. Make sure you have a support group and just know that even if no one's talking to you, there are other people out here who have gone through this and haven't really abused their child or done some terrible thing to them. And they're sitting here going, what did I do? And for the children, I wish that they understand. I never support an abusive person, ever. But not every person is that. And sometimes that term gets thrown around real loosely anymore.
I hate so badly that we're just not going to know what the parents did. They just skate around whatever it is that happened.
Things that, I'm sorry, I grew up with that. It didn't kill me. And I don't mean that ugly, but I'm not saying we shouldn't change and make things better, but I'm not always sure I see better out of it. And that, okay, you don't have to be my best friend. We don't have to have a best friend, but I do deserve respect as your parent. A little bit of, instead of jumping to the conclusion that I did all this against you, my intention was to mess you up, you know, I wanted to hurt you, maybe stop for a minute and ask your parent, what happened to you? I didn't understand when you made this decision, Mom. Why did you make that decision? Just take a minute and stop and think about it because I'm not saying they don't think about it. A lot of them do. They think about it hard, but some of them it's just like, "Oh, you didn't give me what I wanted. Bye."
You're missing the point. The point isn't always that you did not give the kid what they wanted or that they didn't think through why you have made a decision. The point is you made a decision and it didn't work out. And instead of taking accountability for that, you kept doing it. And when the child finally said, I'm going to take myself out of the situation, you said, well, I did my best, but you didn't.
I think everybody needs to understand there's their perspective and your perspective, and everybody is entitled to their perspective and a little more acceptance of that that may be different, and that's okay because my mother and I, we struggled with our relationship, but I'll tell you the trick that we did. We agreed a long time ago that we may not agree on everything. So we agreed to disagree. We agreed that we loved each other enough that we wanted our relationship. And that was the most important thing. And that has saved us. And as a child of abuse, I can honestly say that saved me because I can't change what happened. I can't make my mother pay for the choices she made because they made me who I am. And I'm
But
a
who
good
you
person.
are, okay. But then that's where we differ, because you can say, I can't change the things my mother did. It made me who I am, and who I am is a good person. Evidently, you're not, in the way that we see your 4 children speak to the other people in your family, but not you. So there's, again, this sort of like, I'm a good person, but your kids don't like you. And it's not 1, it's not 2, it's not 3, it's all 4.
But I can take that and try
Yes.
to make the best out of it, which is keeping some kind of relationship because that's my mother. I love her. No matter what, I love her.
Yeah.
And she loves me no matter what.
It's very interesting that you tell us about the fact that they did not focus on bringing the family back together, which is disturbing.
So I lived in a very remote part of West Virginia, a very rural part, just over the border of Virginia. There wasn't a lot of counseling options. But when my daughter at the time, now my son, was sexually abused, I went to the school counselor and I put her in counseling because she maybe doesn't want to talk to me,
That was the right
but
move.
she's got to talk to somebody. And somehow me putting her in that counseling went from us trying to deal with what happened to my child thinking that they needed to disconnect from their family. And I don't
I wonder if, and we're never going to know, right? I wonder if the child had brought up that they felt uncomfortable with the person who ended up assaulting them and were dismissed. And so when they went to counseling and brought that up, they found in themselves a distance from the family who was supposed to protect them and who were warned of it and who just didn't do those things. That definitely means reading into things that were not said, but they're never going to be said.
understand how that happened.
If they never reconcile with you, are you prepared to live the rest
I
of your
agree.
life with some kind of peace? I mean, I know you grieve and we grieve too.
I mean, I have, but it's day by day. Every day is different. Some days are harder than others. Mother's Day, of course. But I guess I had to tell myself this is what they asked me for. They asked me to not be a part of their life, and even the ones who have reached out recently a little bit, you know, they don't reach out consistently. I mean, I still reach out a little bit, but I don't push the envelope because my thought is I know what kind of relationship I want to have with my child.
If you know the relationship you want to have with your child, you should have done a better job of driving yourselves towards, I've said driving a lot today, towards that relationship when they were being raised. It didn't work out, and now you're just blaming them for it.
But my son said to me when I was home, he says, "Well, you need to decide what kind of relationship you want to have with me." No, you put this boundary in place, so you have to decide whatever kind of relationship you want. And I will decide whether I can handle that. And I want a relationship, so I will do the best I can to do that.
If they had to set boundaries, that's letting them know, that's letting you know that they don't want that relationship with you, regardless of which one you want. It's one of the things, and this is every relationship. You're gonna have to go with whoever wants the least, or you have to split. If your child is to the point of like setting a boundary with you, where that boundary is you don't want to speak, take the hint, dude. You goofed, you messed up, it's your fault. Shut up, move on. I hate how many of them are like, I don't get how this happened. It just came out of nowhere. And they have like a 30-page letter of things that they did, and they're like, I'll read that later.
But the reality is, we may never reconnect. And I feel like this if they can live with it and it makes their life better or happier, then I have to live with it. I mean, if I care about them, I can't press it. That does no good. So, in the end, what choice do I have? Do I grieve? Yes, I have a grandchild that I haven't seen since she was 3 years old. That's 13.
We are so attached as parents.
They're just consistently missing the point, right? The point where you push them too far and you can't unpush people. All I do is play chess. That's all I've done in the last like 2 months. And so my head just tries to make those types of metaphors and whatever, or similes. But like that's what you can't unpush a pun. You can't. When it's out there, it's out there. These are my boundaries. I don't like those boundaries. So I guess it's your fault we don't have a relationship.
It's to our kids that it's very difficult to detach.
It is. It got me through the first detachment, separation from my kids when they were younger. I had to just detach. And for a long time, I didn't talk about them. No one knew about them. Now I'm in a stage where
How do you say that? Again, my people have too much shame. I'm very, very Mexican. I cannot imagine saying the words, my children refuse to talk to me.
I don't do that anymore. I always tell people I have 4 kids, and stuff, but it's hard because, oh, well, what do you do? And when do you see them? It's complicated. And some people you feel comfortable sharing that with, and some people you don't want to share that with. That's none of their business. But here I am broadcasting it.
That's right. You're well beyond that now.
Well, but it's kind of cathartic for me because I spent a lot of years hiding that part of myself, like I did something
Yeah, it
wrong,
looks like it.
that I had something
It's probably more so for the camera than it is like her window's missing.
to be ashamed of. And while, yes, I had depression and I had things and I didn't handle everything perfect, I have to also stand up for myself and accept myself and say, I'm a good person.
Evidently not. Over or under in the next 3.5 minutes, does she say something about taking accountability again? And without the part where she goes, but it's their fault.
I did the best that I could in the situation I was in. I love my children. And I'm still here. Anytime they
You don't
pick up
think she
the
says it?
phone, call, I answer. If they message me, I respond. So they chose to shut the door. I have to respect that. Do I like it? No. No,
Yeah.
but it's what is.
Yeah.
And if you're a healthy parent, that's what you do.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm grateful to be able to sit here and talk because, you know, the first thing that jumps into people's mind is, oh, you must have been a terrible parent, all 4 of your children.
Yes. You're so
No,
close.
you don't understand. There is no black and white. It's very, very gray.
I will agree that like if it's one kid, maybe there's like a small chance that like it's not you. But when it's four, when it's four, when it's four,
There's a lot of factors and influences that affect it, and it's very complicated. It's,
Yes.
I'm glad to find someone who is doing more delving into it because this is what I've been looking for. And actually, my best friend sent me your information. She had watched you on YouTube, and we've been best friends for almost 35 years.
Mm.
She helped me raise my kids because I was a single parent a lot,
Yeah.
and we raised our kids together.
One thing I learned, and I'm curious if you've heard this too, and it just shocked me, is to realize that relationships are temporary.
Yeah, I had to accept that. I'm an extremely empathetic.
relationships are temporary, and you should hope that you can work your relation. Exactly, you should work your relationship until one of you dies. That's what that means. Not relationships are temporary. I should let my kids go when they decide that I've been a terrible parent.
Person, and I love people, and I always try to see people in the best light. And my work has always
She does a
been
good job of seeing herself
mostly
in the
with the
best light.
elderly,
You are the elderly.
with dementia. And so,
Who was it? Who was the person that was it the first woman who said that like that child dementia is on the rise? What a moment that was.
that helped me learn. I learned about death and letting go. And in a way, for us parents, it is like a death. I mean, they're still here, which makes it harder because they're not actually gone. You can reach out and touch them if you can get close enough.
Right.
But it is a loss, and you have to grieve it. And on the days you feel like crying, you cry. And on the days you think about all the good times, because there was certainly a lot of good times, you laugh and you smile.
Families are messy. That's what we've learned. It's never goes the way you want it to go.
It's definitely not the community, the family that I was raised in. We were poor Appalachian. We got together and worked our garden. We went fishing and did our weekend fish fries. We had meals on the weekends. You know, I was an only child, the youngest child, and my cousins were my playmates. You know, they were all older than me. Like, we went out in the woods and we did things, you know, different than today's society. And some of the changes I'm really glad to see, but some of it, not
Yeah,
the
don't
bad
you let?
parts, but there were good parts. And I miss those because it's part of why I ended up here where I am in Puerto Rico, because there's
Oh, she's in Puerto Rico. Your kids don't want you in Virginia, so you go to Puerto Rico, and that's who you are.
still such a strong sense of community and family here compared to back in the
Ah!
States anymore. And I find that comforting to be here.
Yeah.
I sneezed. God bless you. Thank you. Oh. Ted interviews Virginia. Her name is Virginia. A mother estranged from all four of her children who did her best to raise them into healthy, strong, independent adults despite 2 broken marriages and a battle with clinical depression. Now deemed unworthy of any contact at all, unworthy. She explains how she's come around to letting them go and moving on with her own life despite the grief that still lingers. Go! Get out of here!